Hi, everybody. Welcome back to GSX. I'm your host, Chuck Harrell. We're almost live from Orlando, Florida. My next guest, Elsine Van Os. She's the founder and CEO of SignpostSix.com. Ms. Elsine, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much, Chuck. Happy to be here.
Now, you're participating in the virtual GSX this year, so I want to make sure if people want to get a hold of you, they can reach you at info@SignpostSix.com, and we're spelling out the number 6, S-I-X. Today, we're going to talk about insider risk training portfolios for companies and individuals. You guys do something very specific and very unique and really so important because I have always believed personally that insider threat was a bigger problem. You know, back in the day, it was somebody's going to steal your VCR, they might steal an intellectual property at the studios. That was problematic. But boy, insider threat now is much more serious, and it could literally mean life and death with active shooter stuff. So tell us, what do you think is the most exciting thing about insider risk management today? It's not your grandfather's risk management, is it?
No, thanks, Chuck. And indeed, I really find it important. I started my career really looking at external threats, but in the end, insider threats are more devastating. And what I think is most exciting about the subject today is that it's really becoming a profession now. So we see that there are more and more vacancies coming up for insider risk managers and analysts, and companies really start to value this profession. It's now up to us to help deliver these professionals, and something SignpostSix focuses on with our training programs.
So tell me why training is so fundamental to insider risk. I mean, I think it used to be back in the day, people would say, well, you know, we're just going to check our employees' trunks as they're coming out of the studio. We'll check their bags. That was what risk was. It was theft, right? But without proper training, we're not going to be able to recognize behavior. And people engaged in bad behavior is what's dangerous.
Indeed. And it's so sad because people often recall the red flags after incidents or insider acts have already materialized. And then they suddenly remember comments or odd behaviors, but they didn't think much of it, so nor did they think of reporting it somewhere. All the dots were there, but they weren't connected. If only the information was reported and came together in one location, then a full picture could have been developed and appropriate action could have been taken. And this is where the relevance and necessity of training really comes in. Training builds the right attitude towards insider risk and enables people to act upon signals appropriately. And it really depends on the role, what action they should take. But that's why I think also training is regarded as the backbone of an insider risk program.
Now, what do organizations need to do to train their employees properly? I would imagine this is difficult given different countries, jurisdictions, different laws. There's a GDPR in Europe about privacy, right? America has 50 different states with 50 different laws about what you can do as far as investigation, right? So in California, if I'm going to look at an employee's background, I need to tell them I'm looking at their background, right? So this must be a challenge. Tell us about this.
Yeah, and I think you're touching on a point of cultural sensitivity as well, but also really company culture and how you want to display that in your training programs. But first and foremost, everybody or each company needs to have a clear rationale for an insider risk program as such. So apart from the whole educational component, organizations should reflect on how to best frame insider risk and explain what the program will not cover as well. So, for example, that the insider risk program is not evaluating employees for job performance or something like that. So it needs to have a clear rationale with which you can get started. But also around training, there's a whole communications angle and how you position your training as well and what frame you're going to use. So, and it also needs to be clear up front what objectives the training program has and what behavior needs to be addressed and changed and why. Enable trainees to make these changes. So this goes beyond teaching what needs to be done and why, but also about the how. For example, if you train your employees in understanding and identify concerning behaviors in the workplace, that's all well and good. But the real reason, the real question is what they're going to do with it, of course. So would you like them to report? Then what are the available channels? And are these sufficiently equipped to answer these questions? So you have to think about the whole picture up front as well. And I can say so many things about this, but I think most importantly is to make a clear overview or plan addressing the specific training needs for the different employee groups. And Chuck, you address also the relevance for certain countries, certain jurisdictions, etc. But I think the first place to have a plan like who are you going to target for your training, which employee groups and where, and make a plan for those. You will want to train your general staff differently, of course, than your security personnel or your investigators, something you were referring to as well. So make sure you tailor your training so that's relevant for the people who are getting that training. And this is what we have done in our offering in our training portfolio for companies. You need to differentiate to make it effective for these groups.
You know, it's kind of ironic if you think about it this way. Some company might say, Elsie, and I want you to train everybody in my company to be aware of this. You will actually be training people that may become an insider threat one day, right? So I think by doing the training, you might be actually stopping bad behavior because now the bad guy knows, listen, I can't act out here at work because this company's on top of things. Just an idea.
That's a very, very good point, because also if you're training and very much a lot of general training programs are also about recognizing concerning behaviors in the workplace, if you're talking about malicious insider threats. But don't just look at your colleagues, also look at yourself. So what are your stress factors? Are you displaying concerning behaviors? Always very good to look at the other people around you, but also look at yourself. So I think it's not necessarily what you meant, Chuck, but I think also there is a preventative factor in the people who are getting these trainings to also signal their own discontent and concerns with the company. So within my company, if we have people or employees departing, for instance, we have also conversations around, okay, we all know about insider risk management. So how am I going to equip you in your next job? And what data are you planning to take? It's a strange conversation, but it's a good conversation to have. If that awareness is there, then at least you can have that conversation about, okay, so what is this process going to look like? How are we going to manage this together? So I think that's there's a lot of preventative action that comes from that basic level of training.
Yeah, I agree. Just the fact that you're aware and talking about it does prevent things. Now, what is your training approach, maybe your style? I would assume you have to get this just right. So it doesn't come across as being punitive, so it doesn't come across as being authoritarian or big brother, that kind of thing. This must be a very delicate balance for you to achieve.
Well, that's a good point because training is a cornerstone of your insider risk program anyway. If you don't get that right, if you don't have the message right, you will jeopardize the full insider risk program that you have in your organization. So you have to get it right. Maybe a little bit about our journey. We started our offering with an insider risk e-learning for all staff, so like a general level of awareness. And then we received questions from leadership and more specialized requests as well. So that helped us shape our full portfolio for companies, from this e-learning to serious business games on insider risk or an educational program for professionals. Because I referred earlier to the exciting things around insider risk management is that we're getting more and more vacancies, more people joining the profession, but they do need to get trained. So also it's important to cover this as well. We've gone through quite a transition during COVID, and everything is now fully online available or accessible in people's own time. No set dates or times except for the insider risk community calls that we have on a monthly basis, but that's really for additional fun. And now we help organizations long term in building that knowledge base for their employees. We really prefer not to sell just one product that we have, but we really want to be joined at the hip with these organizations to tailor make the solutions that we partly already have, but to support them. And our vision is really that it needs to be focused on the duty of care for each other, co-workers, but also from leadership towards their staff. I think that is the best approach that you can take on this matter.
I think you said the most important words here. Duty of care. Really, you are empathetic in this approach, and it's not that you're going after people. you're protecting everybody. That's really the way to look at it. I think it's brilliant. Now, give me your elevator pitch. What's the one thing, the one key thing that organizations should take away from our conversation today that they should know about SignpostSix and Miss Elsine Van Oos?
Thanks, Jack. Well, that the information concerning behaviors preceding an insider act is out there among colleagues and leadership, and way too often action is not taken. So, with hindsight, then everybody says I knew something. Well, let's prevent and act early in support of our colleagues and the organization, duty of care. And of course, we are here to help you along the journey. So you can reach out to us on info@signpostsix.com, and we're happy to discuss how our offering can support your needs. But we're also happy to discuss this whole topic in general, because we're extremely interested in having the discussion and also learning from you a little bit more.
Elsine Van Oos, she's the founder and CEO of SignpostSix.com, SignpostSix.com. She's going to be at GSX on a virtual basis, so make sure you get a hold of them at info@SignpostSix.com. Ms. Elsine, thank you so much. Really good stuff, my friend. You're leading the way here. I think this is the new, what's the word? It's the new industry standard. We need to move to this. COVID's changed our model, and this is something we really need to focus on, and I think you're right on top of it. So thanks so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much, Chuck. Great to be here.